Guided Yatra, where my fellow seekers and I gain deep insights from his wisdom and a glimpse into living a life rooted in satsanga, seva, and sadhana. Based in Niagara Falls, Canada, Vivekji serves as the spiritual guide of Chinmaya Mission Niagara, living with his wife Sheila Ji and sons Vyasa and Shuka. As our guru, mentor, and guide, he walks beside us with humility, relatability, and deep insight, inspiring us all to live with joy, courage, and a spirit of service. We're truly blessed to have Vivekji guide us through day 2 of the Happiness series, focused on how we can enhance our security and resilience in the face of stigma. With gratitude, let us now warmly welcome Vivekji to lead us on this empowering journey. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vidya. My wife, Sheila, is joining us right now, and I wonder how many of the descriptions you shared that she would agree with. Oh. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. How many times a day do you think a typical kid laughs? Imagine a kid, so a minor, 17 and younger. Please share with me in the chat. How many times a day do they laugh? 1,000, 50, hundreds. One kid is sharing 20. It is 300. The typical kid laughs 300 times a day. Now, what's the next part of my question? How many times a day do you laugh? How many times a day does the typical adult laugh? 5, 3. I'm waiting for someone to write a negative number, like negative 27. 15. 300 versus 15. What happened? What happened to us when we were 10 years old and now we're 30 years old or 40 years old? Why is there a new yoga called laughing yoga that I have to put in all of this effort to unite with laughing? I think we've lost track of meaning. Yesterday, I had asked all of you, what are the 3 happiest professions? Firefighters, ticket collectors, those who work for divinity. I don't think any of these are the highest paid professions, but they're the most meaningful. Meaning is not external. It's not in a paycheck. It is internal. And what's incredible about this, anything that's internal becomes universal. Externally, some people have strong Wi-Fi. Some people don't have any Wi-Fi. It's not universal. But if it's internal, it is universal. And so I once again welcome each and every one of you to the Happiness Series. This is our 8th Happiness Series. And as I reflected on all that was shared yesterday, I feel almost everyone already knows about what's being shared. And so the Happiness Series has been described as a celebration maybe it's more of a reminder to follow and feel what you already know. And so I'm again encouraging everyone to be here and now. There's a book called The Island, and these children are stuck on this island, and there's a unique species of birds there, and they only know a few words, and those words are here and now, here and now, reminding those kids to be here and now. I'm reminding you. In this year's Happiness Series, we are trying to understand stigma. Stigma is like being put into a box. Yesterday, you heard Inderji share some very irritating statements like, why do you wear dots on your head? Why do you have so many gods? If I went to the corner store and I showed up the way I'm looking right now, maybe some would be thinking that. They've put me in a box. And for those who are unable to face stigma, for those who don't have the fortune we do, it's like being put in a coffin. If you've ever seen a movie where someone is put in a coffin, I've seen a movie where they're put in a coffin underground while alive, it is terrifying. Even seeing it in a movie is so phobia-inducing. Now, the word stigma is not used often, but another stigma-like sentiment that we're exposed to is the isms, like racism and sexism, ageism, needism. That look at how my hands move and that person has special needs, so needism. These isms are quite systemic in our society. And that's why what we're doing is so important. We're facing these isms, these stigmas, facing them to be able to break them. And the methodology to do this is first to unlearn these stigmas. You are not your skin color only. You are not your thoughts only. When we start to unlearn stigma, we can redefine them. Yesterday, we started to redefine prosperity. My parents are first-generation Canadians. They emigrated from Kanpur and Delhi in the northern part of India or Bharat. And when they moved to Canada, Ontario, Niagara Falls in the 70s, they had to work to survive. If they didn't work, they literally would have died. There wasn't easy access to food or to accommodation, and they did well for themselves, like many first-generation immigrants. Now, for myself and my sisters, we are not the first generation. We are second-generation Canadians. In this home, there's third-generation Canadians that are sleeping. But somehow, in the case of my sisters and I, we were fortunate that our parents were pretty hands-off. My sisters and I did a lot of things that I think my parents knew about, but they never talked about. But somehow, for many in the second generation, there's a residual effect that our parents worked to survive and they succeeded, that we have to work to survive and succeed too. But it's almost like we're competing against our parents. We have to up the ante. And this is just causing stress and anxiety. Instead of adapting that we're the second generation, we're living like the first generation, and that which doesn't adapt doesn't work. I remember when I would come home from school. I remember when I was in university. Those were the most carefree periods of my life. That unstructured time of just playing ball hockey with your neighbors, that unstructured time of just hanging out with your roommates was so good for growth. Now it seems like every moment is structured for us. When my parents used to take us to India for long periods, us meaning my sisters and I would sometimes see those little kids who are 7 and 8 years old, and they'd have those backpacks filled with books. Have you all seen those backpacks? Those bags weigh more than they do. And I thought, I'm so lucky that I live in Canada where we don't have such backpacks filled with books, but slowly it's becoming like that. For those who are working, those in college, those in university. This is a stigmatized relationship with prosperity, that it is external. The symptom of a stigmatized relationship with prosperity is that one feels it's external. It's in their degree, it's in their bank account. And another way to perhaps understand this, anyone who's trying to externalize this through more fancy vacations, through a better model of a car for all of the people that are below them in terms of college or employment, they are extroverts. They want happiness, but are looking in the wrong direction. So that's the symptom. But what is the source of this symptom? It is being depleted. We are tired physically. We are frustrated mentally. We are depleted. And when we are depleted, we choose that which is easy. Easy in all regards. Our lifestyle tends to lean on being lazy, tends to lean on escaping. How many of you resonate with what I'm sharing? You see this in yourself, you see this in the people around you. Fine, that's the symptom, that's the source. We want to know what the solution is. How do we grow out of living for that which is easy, that which is obvious, that which is measured, that which is comparable? The solution has been shared in Srimad Bhagavatam through Shri Krishna. That solution involves dhyana. Dhyana is quietening. Next, dhamma. Dhamma is idolizing. What values do I need to convert into virtues? After that, dana, planning. Planning how I can convert this value into a virtue. Everybody knows patience is a value, but are you patient? When you are, it's become a virtue. And finally, dharma. Then to exert. That there's no room for laziness. When we exert that which we need, what we need is happiness, we do start to feel that inside. So we evolve from externalizing to internalizing. That's the redefinition of prosperity. Now, I offer one more sentiment in terms of redefining prosperity, and that is a sign. How do you know you're growing out of the symptom and the source, and you are growing into the solution? You're more balanced. Those who are externalize are subject to world power. Those who internalize, they are following, they're adhering to willpower. We continue. We are on a deep dive into stigma. We're facing it, that way we can break it. How? By unlearning, being exposed to that which is more healthy, more right, We are unlearning what is holding us back, putting us in a box, and then to redefine. Now we shift into redefining identity. I went to a Catholic school from grade 1 to 7. Then our school closed because it was so small. I went to a different school in grade 8. It was a public school. It was much bigger. Then I went to another school in grade 9 when I got into high school, which was even bigger. So school after school, it kept on getting bigger. School after school, I kept on being more alone in the sense that my friends didn't go from a Catholic school to a public school. From that public school, not everyone went to the high school I went to. And so I found myself in grade 9 and grade 10 not being as confident as I hoped to be when I was 13 and 14 years old. And you've heard me describe that many times, but as I immerse myself in the Happiness series more, what I've come to understand and appreciate, it wasn't a confidence matter. I was unclear about who I was supposed to be. Was I a Catholic? Was I a social person? Am I supposed to be by myself all the time? I was unclear about who I was supposed to be. Being in high school is one of the most difficult experiences that one goes through. And I empathize with this so much, having gone through a difficult transition from grade 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, etc., which is why, and our team is going to screen share a couple of images for you. Since January of 2008, I have tried to dedicate my maximum time and effort to supporting those in high school, those in college, and those evolving adults. We have classes every week on Mondays and Wednesdays, and these classes are taught by those who are second generation seekers who are now teachers. I have taught Shankarji and Sumanji, and so they are equally empathetic and passionate about supporting those who are younger. And you'll see in the next poster, it's not just on a weekly basis because not everyone can commit to weekly self-development, but we also have monthly and yearly camps and retreats, which we travel across Canada, America, the world. This year we're going to Bharat, we're going to Germany, we're going to Hungary, we're going to New Zealand, again, to help those who are going through this difficult period. Thank you, team. So we need to really face this in a deep dive way. What is identity? Please share with me in the chat. My time is already up for what I have to contribute, but my photograph is on the poster, so I'm going to take a few more minutes. Please share with me in the chat. What is identity? Wow. Wonderful sharing on who you think you are, what we are attached to, how I view myself. Yes. I would start off with identity is what one feels, their emotions. When I feel angry, that's my identity. I'm an angry person. When I feel chill, that's my identity. I'm chillaxing. But deeper than what I feel is what I am, what I identify with. What you are is the locus. From that comes feelings. If I can give you an example, for those who identify as Americans, in November, when there was a change in president, some of you felt very happy about this. Some of you felt very sad about this. You see how that who you are then manifested as emotions. So these are some insights into identity. Now, offering some more reflection on this. Who are you? Historically, our identity has always flowed through a tube or a conduit or a portal that is binary in nature. Yes, this binary framework related to your gender, you're this or that, was binary in terms of your profession. You got a white collar job or a blue collar job. It was binary in terms of relationships. If you follow what your parents say, you get married to this person. If you don't follow what your parents say, you get married to this person. This notion of having a binary identity reminds me of computers, no? 0, 1, 1 zeros, it's just that combination. But we're not computers. This binary structure is shown so awesomely in the Matrix. When you get into the Matrix, what is the Matrix? It's just all of that code, correct? It's not real. There's no passion in all of that. Now, a binary identity is very much the fabric and the remnants of colonialism. If I can zoom into the history of India or Bharat, it was during the colonial period that this practice of casteism became rampant. But there's no root to casteism. In our culture, it is known as varna, or a color classification. Sometimes I'm red. I think a good example of this is in the movie Inside Out. Sometimes I'm purple because I'm afraid. Sometimes I'm green because I'm disgusted. Sometimes I'm blue because I'm sad. But you see how our colors change. They're changing right now. So to face and break the notion of binary, to unlearn this, to redefine this. So how are we going to do this? Today I just have to introduce it because Indarji, Narayana, we're going to share, have so many better things to share than I'm sharing, but for the sake of completing my responsibility, we go to another manual known as Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. And how awesome on Gita Jayanti that this is being referenced. And the hero once again in Shrimad Bhagavad Gita is Shri Krishna. But here it's not about his life, it's about his teachings. And he teaches Prince Arjuna, who fell on account of stigma, faced that stigma, and then rose up again. And so he's setting a precedent for all of us. The way that we can redefine our identity. Here is the 4-part framework, which I'm just going to share in Sanskrit, English, and then finish. This is all sequential. Number 1, Swadhyaya. In English, this is self-reflection. Number 2, Swabhava. In English, this is self-revelation. Number 3, Svakarma, which is self-reconciliation. And number 4 is Swadharma, which is self-realization. This is how we can redefine our identity through reflection, revelation, reconciliation, and finally, realization. Thank you for being patient with a full review and an introduction into redefining identity. Team, please continue.
Thank you, Vivekji. For day 2 of Dynamics, we're thrilled to have Indraji again guiding us. Today, she will expand on our previous session where we redefined prosperity to move forward to using a unique guided visualization to help us reshape our sense of identity. Indra Ji is a seasoned psychologist with 30 years of experience specializing in adult care and a certified Hindu spiritual care provider. She is also a hospital chaplain, dedicated volunteer with therapy dogs, and an active member of Chinmaya Mission, Cleveland. Welcome, and over to you, Indra Ji.
Thank you, Vidyaji. Riom, everyone. I'm not going to go over a whole lot about identity because Vivekji covered it, but I just want to say our identity formation begins from the time that we are born. And initially, it is really shaped by all the significant people in our lives, especially the parents, our environment in which we grow up, and also the culture and the society as we continue to get older. It all has influence on how we begin to see ourselves, just like Vivekji was highlighting about how he felt in high school. So identity formation in a way is really about discovering and developing our personal potential, knowing what our capabilities are and how we really bring about those capabilities and implement, and how we bring that into fruition, if you will. So the exercise that we are going to do is really about recognizing and remembering how the identity formation happens, aware of the impact of stigma on our own identity, and it's pretty fluid, and also to recognize that we really have the capacity, as Vivekji said, to redefine through insight and through wisdom that we develop, and then to sort of reformulate how we look at ourselves. So the first part, I want to start with the stigma component, and I'm going to reread the statements that I read yesterday. But this time, I want you to look at it through the perspective of your identity. So as I'm reading the statements, think about what kind of words pop up in your mind when you think of your own sense of identity, listening to these really stigmatizing statements. So this is going to be a very short exercise, this component of it, then we'll go into guided visualization. So again, deeply listen to the statements and just notice what arises for you. You hear a negative statement about your appearance, a part of your body, or about your weight or your skin color. You hear someone making a pejorative statement about your mental health. You hear someone say, but aren't you part of this model minority? You shouldn't have problems. How come you don't understand this? How come you're not acing this test? How come you can't finish that project on time? I can't believe you don't understand this and you need help. You speak really good English and you have some very strange customs. Your food has strange smells. They have strange colors. And what's with that? Again, why do you all wear dots on your forehead? That is very weird. Why do you have idols? Why do you worship idols? And why do you have so many gods? That makes absolutely no sense. Why are you pursuing a spiritual path? You have everything going on in your life. You have all these degrees from Ivy colleges. Why are you going into a spiritual path? Why are you attending all these spiritual lectures and following swamis around? Are you becoming a part of a cult? Are they really brainwashing you? Now think about these words and notice what came up for you as far as your identity goes. And we'll give you 2 minutes to jot down some of those words that came up for you through the perspective, through the lens of stigma about your identity. So 2 minutes, just jot it down, then we'll move into guided visualization. Thank you. So let's move into the guided visualization part of it. So if you would just make yourself comfortable, just sit back. If you're able to, just keep your feet on the ground and just sit up straight and tall and gently close your eyes. Bring to mind a tree with roots below, a strong trunk, and branches filled with lush leaves and fruits. Now visualize yourself as a tree with 3 sets of roots. And these 3 sets of roots form a very strong foundation for you. The familial roots, the personal roots, your life experience from the time of your birth to now, and your spiritual roots. And there is also a central, you can call it a taproot, that goes deep down and anchors into the divine. The ground is the environment that you grow up in, that nourishes you, nurtures you emotionally and spiritually. And then bring to mind your trunk, the trunk that symbolizes values, symbolizes skills, purpose, and principles that guide you in making choices in your life. So visualize your trunk as strong, firmly grounded, supported by the foundation of the 3 roots. When you think of the branches are in a way an extended portions of the tree. And the extensions are really your dreams, the growth that has happened in you, in your life, through the dreams that you had, the dreams that you have, and the desires that you have. The leaves of a tree and the leaves on your tree are sources of nourishment. And these are the relationships in your life, the relationships that have nurtured you, that have contributed to your life. Hopefully many of them positive and maybe some of them negative, but nevertheless they have contributed something to your life, to who you are today. And then the fruits are the results or the gifts that you have received from others, from people that you have come across in your life, from the time that you were born to today. And the seeds of this tree are also extensions of the tree into the future, if you will. And the seeds are the gifts that you have for others. So when you have this imagery of tree, that your life as a tree, begin to look at this through the lens of identity. And when you look at this tree, and you look from this tree of your life, what words come up for you as it relates and pertains to your identity? Again, take about maybe a minute or so to write down what comes up for you. And then we'll go from there. You can open your eyes, of course, if you have to write down. So if you're able to write in the chat for the first one, the response to all those negative statements when you were looking through identity, what came up for you, we would really appreciate it. So we can see, what was your sense of identity about listening to those stigmatizing statements? Insecure, yeah. Too emotional, low confidence. Trunk gets shaky, yeah. Insecurity. Separateness, different. Who said those statements matters to me? Yeah, very much so, yes. Someone closer to us saying that is really intense. Yes, feeling bitter, fear of missing out, unfitting. I'm not enough. Yes, very much. Yes. I'm less than. Offensive, definitely. There is that anger in there. How dare you say that to me? Absolutely. Can hold grudge against them, not accepted. Where do I belong? Defensive. Self-conscious, yes. Hurt. Yeah, it really does go deep within us that somehow we are not being accepted. We are sort of pushed aside, if you will. Now shift to what came up after that guided imagery for you, where you were looking at yourself as this grounded tree. Giving, loving, strong, stable, deep-rooted, integrated, confident, expansion, giving, secure, grateful, feeling strong. Roots are spreading, yes, peace, gratitude, unshakable, beautiful. Feel divinity, yes. Feeling strong and healthy, self-sufficient, optimistic, yes. Abundant, beautiful, yeah, thank you. So we can see the difference, right? How we end up feeling internally when certain things come our way, and then how we look at things, how we internalize and how we understand who we really are. So the more rooted we are able to withstand all the onslaught, whatever comes from the outside. So if we can keep remembering ourselves, as Vivekji talked about, how do we redefine ourselves? That if we can come back to ourselves, it's more internal. So outside of us, anything can happen. But as long as we remain rooted within ourselves, we are able to receive and then not absorb it. We can just deflect it and throw it back outside. So it's about the summary of all of this. So stigmatizing statements happen. People are going to say things, but we do have a choice how to respond to that, whether we absorb it or not, whether we deflect it or not. It is all up to us. But in order for us to do that, we have to be stable, we have to be grounded, and we have to have that clear vision. And we have to, as Vivekji said, we have to be in a state of balance. So hopefully this was helpful, and thank you very much. Gratitude, Vivekji. Gratitude, everyone.
Thank you, Indraji, for yet another reflective and poignant dynamic session. As we move on to our discussion piece of the evening, Ryan VanSickle, who has navigated a remarkable journey from its roots in rural Minnesota, go Minnesota, will lead today's discussion session. Ryan was born in Michigan to Kurt and Nancy, who have been married for over 4 decades, and grew up in rural town Minnesota, surrounded by natural beauty of the state. Raised in a faith-centered household, he excelled academically, artistically, and athletically in high school, but privately battled depression and identified as an atheist. During college, despite academic success, his mental health struggles led to an inpatient psychiatric care. The demands of school kept his depression at bay, and during this time, he developed stronger social skills, built friendships, met his ex-wife, and participated in a medical mission trip to the Haitian Dominican border. This experience was transformative, inspiring him to pursue a career as a physician. After pharmacy school, Ryan transitioned directly into medical school, marrying during his training and later starting a residency in anesthesiology. However, personal Tragedies during his third year triggered depression, suicidal ideation, and substance abuse, ultimately leading him to seek help at the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. There, he found spiritual grounding and a sense of oneness. Ryan's journey then took him to Kenya, where he served as a volunteer physician during a national medical crisis, inspiring his decision to specialize in emergency medicine. Returning to the United States, he completed his residency at the University of Florida, where he met his wife, Stephanie. Now living in Northwest Arkansas, Ryan works as an emergency medicine physician while dedicating time to community service at a local soup kitchen and juvenile detention center. In his free time, he enjoys outdoor activities like mountain biking, hiking, kayaking, and managing his forested property with his wife and their dogs. Welcome, Ryan G.
Thank you, Vidya. How are you?
Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Vivek ji. Oh, there you are. Great to see you, my friend.
Yes, you too, Ryan. And for everyone else, his passport name is Ryan, but we all call him Narayan. Yes, it works perfectly. And for those who don't know what Narayan means, it means the path that humans should follow. Nara Ayana. So that's what Narayan means. I'm glad you're well, Narayan. Tell me, what did Stephanie, we'll go back and forth, okay? What did Stephanie, your wife, who's joining us right now, what did she appreciate the most from yesterday's focus on redefining prosperity? I saw
I
both of
would,
you sitting together. That's why I'm asking.
yeah, I would say probably her appreciation for the pure joy and peace that comes from the childlike answers of a child.
Yes. And that's very natural to you. You're many years older than Tejas biologically, but in terms of spirit and passion, I don't see so much of a difference. Okay, your turn, Ryan.
Well, I guess first there was just a lot of things that were hitting hard that I wasn't really having until thinking about with this conversation, but
Yeah.
like thinking about who am I while I was in rehab, and really getting boxed in, which I think is really what stigma is, a sense of feeling like you're boxed in. So that was some topics I thought maybe we could talk about eventually if needed, just because
Yeah.
those were some big ones, especially the other one that was something I thought about throughout the day was the stigma of faith in medicine, especially. Um, at least where I trained and grew up, it was definitely not something that was considered even like acceptable, I think, to talk about. Nevertheless, if you believed in it, you probably got made fun of. So
Let's talk about it, Ryan. And I'd like to start off with what you had shared about the stigma of being in rehab. There's so many shows that you watch on TV, and we've both gone to high school in Canada and America where the jocks hang out and the nerds hang out and the singers hang out, and you're boxed into that. And you may not even be like that, but you start to act like that. You start to feel like that. So as someone who's gone through rehab, describe that box and how did you break it?
yeah, at first when I'm there, I'm feeling like my life is over because it wasn't something, I mean, we won't get into the long story of my life, but it wasn't something that was my life until very shortly before I was in rehab. And so to be sitting there being like, well, the first thing is, oh, this isn't me, but being there, realizing that what I found out was that addiction, quote unquote, is really mental health. And I realized I do need to be there because I think the same way as these people. So at first, of course, I was so afraid of the stigma of being labeled a physician who's used opiates. But then with years of working on self-development and working on interviewing with people and having to talk about it, I was able to slowly start admitting more of the story, I guess, to kind of, test the water, honestly.
Yeah.
And, because there's obviously certain times where I had to be full disclosure, but there's plenty of times where I didn't have to be full disclosure. And I would, tip my toe in the water to see how open they were to having a conversation about the realness of why I made a bad decision, but why you should have faith in me now. So that was real interesting. But what I've found and what I say all the time now is I literally say this to everyone, no matter what the conversation is, no matter what the topic is, like transparency will always win.
Yeah.
Because like Swami Tejamayanada said, that clean conscience will help you fall asleep at night. And when you're not like transparent, you're going to hold something back and you're not going to be your true self when it comes to your identity. When I was thinking about talking about this today with you, I was like, my identity is that crazy doctor who talks about God to almost every single patient. But that didn't happen until about a year ago. And so, but that's who I realized I've been most of my life too. So it took a long time to be me, and it took a long time to accept not caring at all what other people thought about me. That was one of the biggest things that
Yeah.
someone taught me in rehab. Was they said, their quote was, "What other people think about you is none of your business."
Hmm. Yeah. Those are really powerful and practical thoughts, Ryan. Many of us, when we study self-development, we come across a phrase or a virtue called viraga, which means to be dispassionate. And I'm not fond of that definition. I feel one should be passionate about life and passionate about music and running and so on. And another way to describe this is to not have likes, but the way that I try to live this, and I know you are, is to live not to be liked. As soon as you live to be liked, it's almost like you're reinforcing that stigma. So those are all really great thoughts about how you figured all of this out and you're following your passion, and with it, it's like prosperity is chasing you. It's like everything is going well in your life. So we're happy for you, Ryan. I want to share a few more sentiments about you, and then if you want, you can ask me a question, or I can keep asking you questions. Ryan and I actually met over a podcast. Ryan had found out about our Live Vedanta podcast, and eventually I think he had emailed me and he said that he listened to like, I don't know, 300 hours of podcasts in a month. So he's like a super podcaster. And I must acknowledge, while we're all together right now, there's a seeker that's joining us. And if you look at him, his name is, it's written as W. W. Robinson. And I just privately messaged him and I said, "How did you find about the Happiness series?" And he said, "I found you on Spotify a year ago." And then an email came in about the Happiness series. This is the William that I had read about in Meaningful Mornings. So it's super cool that we're all developing these relationships based on self-development. And more specifically, Ryan and I had planned to be together for a month. It was going to be in Niagara or London, but it ended up being in Tibet. So Ryan and I, we hiked a lot from Nepal to Tibet and back. So we have a close relationship, and I appreciate how open you are about your life, and everyone else does too. So Ryan, now I am going to pose the next question. Since you're following your faith about talking about God as an emergency room physician, there's many other seekers in our community who are exposed to a lot of sadness, whether they're psychologists or psychiatrists, whether they're social workers or just caregivers. How do you be less affected by the sadness you're exposed to?
Yeah, before every time we talk, I talk about this documentary, hoping that one more person watches it, Surviving Death. Um, there's a conversation from a woman who has a near-death experience, who has a conversation with her ancestors essentially. And at the end of the conversation, when she's told she's going back because it's not her time, they also tell her that her son is going to die before he becomes a man. And she asks, why me? Why? And they say, because beauty becomes of all things. And for me, everything has a reason. I give an example of this Mother's Day. We had a 3-month-old that came in dead. And, there's nothing great about that. But the reality is that every single person that worked that day became an advocate to encourage mothers not to sleep with their babies. That mother wasn't going to sleep with any more of her children. There is a lot of collateral beauty in the horribleness that we experience in everyday life. And what I tell everyone is that we all are dealt our cards, and it's part of the test. It's part of the trials and tribulations of life to see if we can get to that enlightenment, to heaven, whatever you want to call it, that this is part of it. We are not living in heaven, we're living on earth. And so we have to go through trials and tribulations to get to that ultimate peace that we're looking for. And so for me, I just look at it as everything as an opportunity to learn something from it instead of give it the why me or why them.
I like it so much, Ryan. I was sharing with the seeker recently that if a challenge makes you more reflective, is it really an adversity then? It's beneficial to you and to the people around you. I'm just going to keep asking you questions. That's my preference right now. I have to talk a lot, so it's easier when I ask you questions. Okay. When we were on the Kailash Yatra, when we were hiking to Tibet, and many people came with us, many have not been able to join us, what was your greatest revelation? What did you realize about life?
That there's only one point. That what I've been saying recently is that everything we do in life has a purpose. I mean, literally everything. If you choose to go walk downstairs, to go to grab something from the kitchen, it's because you're hungry, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything we do has a point. So why do we think that life doesn't have a point or a purpose if everything we do in life has a point or purpose? And that really hit me in the face during that trip, and that stop dragging your feet. Like, you have a point, you have a purpose, do it, because there's no other point. There's no point of building a big bank account. There's no point of anything if you don't do your point in life, or because the rest of it is it's superfluous, So if you can at least start in progress of your purpose, then maybe do the other things. But until you're actually starting to work on your purpose, it became very obvious that there's only purpose in life, really.
Yeah. Awesome, Ryan. I don't have to say I concur with you. I feel the same. One more question for you. We have a lot of seekers who are joining us that are part of the rainbow community, whether they're lesbian or gay or transsexual, etc. And in the South Asian community, in the Indian community, in the Sanatana Dharma community, this is not talked about a lot. And because of that, there's so much pressure and negativity on that, let's call them a child, as well as the parents and the grandparents. What support or suggestion can you make for all of this pressure to be released for someone who identifies as being part of the rainbow community?
My best answer for that, obviously not being in that group, so not speaking from their point of view, would be the analogy of probably the Alcoholics Anonymous, the NA Anonymous, Al-Anon type groups. And what I tell people who come into the ER who have mental health addiction problems is, I say, the reason you need to find a sponsor, the reason you need to find groups, is because you need to have someone that will not be a biased judge of your feelings. And when you have people who are non-biased and aren't judging you and don't know, every single little itty bitty detail of your life, you're going to be heard, and then you're going to start feeling more comfortable to start speaking your feelings and your emotions. So I think finding, a group of some sort and then creating yourself a sponsor of some sort out of that group would be helpful. I could imagine, at least.
Yeah. Solid. You're totally right about accountability. You've talked a lot about accountability. And when you have someone who is following through with their own life, then you being accountable to them helps you to follow through with your own life too. Awesome. Ryan, final words before our team finishes the Happiness Series today?
Don't be afraid to talk about God, even with people who don't look like you or talk like you. I think a lot of people in this day and age are really desperate for you to reach out to them and be supportive. And it's okay at the end to mention why you are this good, because I think that's what our Creator wants us to do, is to be helping others find our Creator.
Right on, Ryan. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for describing all of the messiness, which so many of us can relate to. And to you and Stephanie, best wishes with everything that you're doing. I hope that Shuka, Vyasa, Sheila, and I can come meet both of you in Eureka Springs soon. Otherwise, we'll see you in Cleveland. With that, we've completed our discourse, we've completed our dynamics and our dialogue, and our team will complete day 2. Team?
Hariom, everyone. Thank you, Vivek ji. Thank you, Indira ji and Ryan, for another great session today. Our announcement today is to like, subscribe, engage with Chinmaya Mission Niagara's social media accounts. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, something for everyone. These details are being shared in the chat. There we go. And so we will close for tonight, and we will see you all tomorrow for our final day. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hariom, everyone. Good night.